Aloha, it's 365Y.
With Julie and Eric Ziemelis, and we're coming to you live from the 365 Sunset Lanai. And one of the things that we wanted to talk to you guys about was a little bit of our personal experiences moving to this island, which we've actually jumped in and off of at least 3 times, right?
Yes.
So
I think you call them the mistakes would be the word to use.
Yes, the mistakes that we made by moving to Hawaii. But there are cautionary tales for some of you who might be considering the move, and also for those of us who think that living on an island is really hard. We're going to show you that yes, sometimes it can be. Yes,
yeah.
It can be.
Yes, getting back to that, you see our videos, you're like, oh my God, it's so perfect. You got sunset down at the resorts, and you've got all these great things to do. There's also hardness here too. You know what I mean? It's not quite perfect. It's not perfect all the time. And so at least we'll put some of the mistakes that we made while being here.
One of the mistakes we made was because basically we moved here so long ago the technology wasn't actually available.
Okay, all right. Let me start with this one. Okay, so we were looking at condos to buy
in 2000 and
it was 2005 was the year. Actually started 2004 that we started, and we were looking around, and first of all there was no Google Maps, okay, no Google Earth, so you were kind of on your own, so you kind of knew where you had to go find a map and you had to go look it up, and it was not very convenient. So I found this great condo. It was a 2-bedroom 2-bath, epic ocean view, super cheap, and it was perfect, and it was in a town called Kainaloo, and I was like, well, where's that? It's and it says walk to beach, right? And I'm like, really?
Walk to town.
Well, oh yeah, walk to town. I'm like, oh yeah, walk to town, as in that shouldn't be that hard of it. It's just one of those suburbs. Well, I couldn't look it up. I didn't know. We had one of our friends actually go take a look at it with us, and all of a sudden she goes, do you know that this place is 20 minutes out of town? And there's nothing wrong with the complex. It's a great complex. It was just the fact that it was not at all what we were expecting, and we were like, things are different there than they are.
Yeah. And that's before you guys, I know people were doing it, but before the term sight unseen really was a big deal.
And we were going to look at it. This is just kind of scouting to get ready for doing it.
Yeah.
But time before Google made this place very difficult, and we were slow to adapt. And this is kind of where I can add this to today, is that even now there's a lot of times that Google screws up on, if you put the address in and say MapQuest this, it might not do it, and you might end up, our old house, they kept throwing us a mile down the road, and all our friends are like, what happened to your Google Maps?
That was like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
But one thing though too is people say when they come here for any length of time, they'll say things like, oh, we've been coming every single year for 20 years, right? Yeah. Eric and I had never been to this island before we decided to buy a house here.
Yeah, it was brand new, and what saved us is that our plan was only to live for a year, so it wasn't like
we wanted the grand adventure of just being able to call a Hawaii home for a year. Basically flip a condo. Bring the kids. My big thing was that our kids were little, and all my friends who had children that were older said, do not move all over the place. When the kids get older, they'll hate you. They'll be socially awkward, the whole thing. So we said, if we don't do this now, we're never going to do it. So we did it. And we were probably I was 39.
I was 40 when I was here, so yeah.
Yeah, 39, 40.
Yeah.
But one of the things, you guys, is that I saw that here was the ocean, here was the highway, and there was nothing in between it.
Yes, but definitely a mistake. There are no bike paths along the ocean.
This isn't Venice Beach. And so I was thinking, because I had been to Venice Beach, and also in Santa Cruz, you can go along West Cliff Drive. And so you can do your thing. And I couldn't understand what the heck, why was the ocean so far from the highway? And then I get here and I realize it's lava fields.
Right.
Okay, so do you want to call me a big old fat dunce? Go ahead. That I didn't realize that. It's so funny when people laugh at people who say they don't realize that this is such a big volcanic island.
Yeah.
And that you think that this is tropical, every island is a tropical green oasis. When you get to this island and you realize that there is like 30 miles of like nothing but lava, I was shocked when I flew in.
Yeah.
Right? So one of my mistakes was I should have looked at a topo map or some level of I don't know, like even if they had National Geographic. Because we were talking about, you guys, there wasn't Google Earth. It wasn't like all of a sudden you go, let me see from above looking down. That wasn't existing. So getting to this island, I wasn't quite sure what I was getting myself into in terms of the landscaping.
Landscaping and topography too, right? Yeah. I mean, everything is either up or down. You're rolling up the hill or you're rolling down the hill. Yeah. There's no such thing as...
You were living on the side of a volcano all over this whole island.
Yes, on top of that.
Yeah. But then also another thing that happened was I had 2 small children, basically an infant and a toddler, and I was convinced that there was going to be childcare options all over this place like they had in the Bay Area. And also I thought that it was going to be pretty easy for me to find a full-time professional job, and that did not happen.
So yeah, and that's what makes being here today is a little bit different than back in the day that we started.
You still don't really have decent childcare options here.
No, I was talking about the jobs, not the child care.
I don't know about that either.
The answer is today a lot of people have been bringing their jobs from the mainland.
Yeah,
which makes it different. But there's still not a lot of childcare. I think the only difference now is that Kona particularly has become an older community. But the good news, at least the people are here are fairly considerate and nice and are hip when they're here. But
yeah, but we lived you guys seriously. Another thing, if you want to actually even buy a house here or just like live here like anywhere. Finding out like the different demographics of this different area. When we moved into Keauhou, we did not know it was basically a retirement community.
Well, and also the temperatures too. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it was really hot. So we bought in a place called Keauhou Resort, and the realtor didn't tell us, but we did not think to ask, was how hot it would get in that area. Keauhou basically has no airflow. Its name means new currents, and it's not the air currents we're talking about. But basically, it's one of the hottest places in the entire Hawaiian island chain.
Right.
So we're down near the ocean, and that's another thing I didn't know was that next to the ocean is the hottest place that you can go to. Because most of us who live in America are not that Hawaii's not America, but don't live like on the side of a mountain. So the elevation makes such a difference in terms of what you're going to get in terms of
yes.
temperature.
I think mistake being if we had a chance to redo it, we would not live directly on the ocean. You know what I mean? It is, and especially in Keauhou because if the wind doesn't blow, it was definitely warmed out there. Yeah. A little side note on that: the other place that is also really hot here on the island is Kauai. Is another place that is definitely, and you can go there. You can see why it's that way.
Yeah, it's like 89
but it's kind of
degrees,
like it's mistakes that you don't realize that there's so many. Our mistake was that we didn't realize there's so many microclimates.
Yeah,
you know
microclimates.
Back in the mainland, mostly, you like it's very consistent of where you're going to go. Maybe a few degrees, but here it's very very considerable. For the difference.
It's like you guys like living in Los Angeles versus like being up on the side of the San Gabriel Mountains or being in Santa Clara County and being up up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Is just different.
And that's why now we live at elevation. We live at 700 feet because that way there's no question.
Cool and comfy.
Yes, cool, comfy, and even cold in winters.
Yep. But also, I think too, one of the mistakes that we made also was the first time we moved here, we brought a bunch of hockey bags.
Yeah.
Which was great.
Yep.
Because we realized you don't need that much when you move here.
I have a picture of a pile of hockey bags. We had we were four people, 2 pieces of luggage per one, and they were full hockey bags. And the hockey bag's really light, so you can really fill it up. So it was, and they're mainly closed, so you're like, you're ready to go. So it was cool. It was just hard to find somebody to actually take us from the airport because you needed a full-on van for that. You couldn't just have your car.
Yeah, we didn't think about that when we got here, how we were going to get around with all these hockey bags. But I've seen people who have moved here who have shipped themselves a $20,000 container.
Yeah, so I would say mistake is, and this is not so much in this case, but if you decide you're going to bring too much here, would be definitely a mistake as well.
Right. But when we talk about moving on and off the island, after our 1-year stint was done, we went back to the Bay Area, and then we moved here again full time in 2010, and then we brought some stuff. But not that much.
Yeah.
But then when we left the island that time, which was in 2015-16, we did get a container.
We got a container off. I got a container off the island, and then coming back on, this wasn't a mistake. We had to get our stuff back, and so it was so expensive to get our stuff back that we couldn't actually just get a container because I don't know if you guys have been watching, but the container prices have definitely been going up.
Shipping your car here is like doubled also in the last few years.
It's gone up. So we ended up doing pallets is what we ended up doing. We only shipped half of our stuff here and was able to make it so it was a reasonable number that we could actually afford to bring it back here. So that was not a mistake. That worked out well.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, but I had written in a book. I wrote a book called How to Move to Kona, and I said, don't bring your mother's antique furniture to Hawaii with you, and that was one of the things.
Okay, why don't you talk about your mom's table? That's always
okay. So I'm gonna write a novel about my mother's table one of these days, guys. Watch me. I had written the book, sent it out in 2014, and then my mom died. And then that summer, we had an opportunity to go to her estate and figure out what it was that we needed. And Eric's like, we're not taking any of the furniture. I'm like, no.
We lived in Hawaii. Come on, the shipment is going to be a fortune.
And I'm like, that table is something I need in my house. And Eric's like, are you out of your mind? It's going to cost you a fortune.
Okay, wait. Before we go too far, why don't you tell why it's so important that your mom, what's so important about your mom's table? What does your mom table represent?
Okay, so that table has been in the family for at least 2 or 3 generations, and every major event was around that table. Thanksgiving and Christmas, birthdays, the whole thing, grew up around this table. And my mom had shipped it up to Oregon, in the Oregon coast where she lived and retired. And so all of our family members also sat around that table. So I watched all these generations of people sitting around this table.
And this table can comfortably sit 12, even maybe 14 if you really push it.
Right. And I put on parties. I like to entertain. And so I thought if I had that table, I could entertain more people for dinners and holidays. And so I just really wanted that table. There's also an interesting story there too. I don't know if you guys believe this stuff or not, but basically I did have a psychic. When I said, I went to this woman who was like, she was a Hawaiian friend of mine, and I said, can you just please help me feel better about letting this table go, because it's like eating at my heart. And she basically said, if you believe this or not, it's true. She said, did your mother, when she passed away, have short gray hair? And I said, yes, she did. And she's like, well, she's sitting over there, and she actually wants you to have that table. She wants you to go and get that table. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I must go. So I flew all the way to Oregon, and I got it out of the estate sale. And I found out that it was going to cost me at least $5,000 to ship that table.
Oh, no, why don't you talk about the 2 shipping companies?
Okay, so that was another mistake.
So that's kind of the mistake here. Watch out for this one, guys. This is one of those little things.
So there's 2 Hawaiian mover companies. One's called like Hawaiian Movers, and the other was called like Hawaiian Moving or something. So I called the one Hawaiian Mover company, and they'd given me a quote of $2,500. And then when it came to time to actually call them back and get everything set up, I called the wrong company, and they didn't tell me that I was calling the wrong company.
They were happy to just get your business.
Right. So then I go, after I take the table off of the Oregon coast and I set it in a storage area so that the mover company could come and get it. They called me. They had put all of my furniture on the truck already, and then they called to make sure that I was going to pay them the $5,000 when it got to here. And I'm like, no. Wherever you are right now, please just drop that table off, and I'll figure out another way to get it. And they're like, oh no, it's too late. And I'm like, $5,000. So I cried, and they lowered the price, I think, to like $3,500.
They came close, is what they did. At least they realized they made it. But here was a company. 2 companies are very similar and playing off. One is playing off the other one.
Right. And then when I called the other company, and I said, oh my gosh, this company did this to me. And she said, that happens quite often, actually. So if you're ever going to move your stuff, check out.
Careful with moving companies.
Right. There's like Hawaiian movers, and there's Hawaiian. It was so close, you guys. Most people actually use Pasha.
Oh, well, Pasha's the main. Pasha's not the moving company. Pasha's the
shipping company.
Shipping company.
Yeah, but you can actually get like
Matson and Pasha's. They're both fine.
Yeah, that was a mistake. And you know what? Also, then that got moved here in 2015. Then we left the island in 2016, and we had to ship it back to where we were going to Lake Tahoe, and then I had to ship it back again. This table is now over a $10,000 table just from shipping costs alone. So I love that table. I have had many friends and family members around this table in this house, and it's going to stay here in Hawaii. But
just every time we eat dinner, we throw $1 towards the table.
Yeah, that was a very expensive, nostalgic mistake, I think.
Yeah.
You know what
so this kind of leads into a little bit of a bigger thought process. It's really, and it's gotten much more expensive to ship things here to the island than it used to be. I mean, now I've heard $20,000 and $30,000 for containers to come here. So the question is, do you really need it? Because things are different here. The big bulky furniture is not necessarily. We pared it down to Julie's big table because that's the family heirloom. But there was a lot of other stuff that we didn't need. You know what I mean? It's not that crucial. So just things to think about. Could you get away with? You know, they have really small. I know U-Haul pods and things like that, and just get a couple things instead of, and you can buy things here. We're not, and people leave the island and they have to sell furniture, so it is accessible to get furniture. Yep. It's just if it's what it is. So just something for you guys to think about that mistake as well.
Yes, and then also I think what we did was actually pretty smart. Is we shipped the van here, and then shipped it back, and then shipped it back again, and.
I don't know if that's a mistake or not.
No, okay, well, this. That was when it was $1,000 to do.
Sorry.
Now it's
okay. All right. So let me.
Okay.
So we came over here for 3 summers, and we got a quote for renting a car of it was like $2,700 for the three months is what it was. Rental cars per month are not a good way to do it. But the van, and we were going to be doing some home repairs, so the van was perfect. So we sent the van over. It took about 2 weeks to get over here. We popped it on. We drove it the whole summer, and then we popped it back on the Matson on the way back. And at that time, it was fairly reasonably priced.
Right. So it was less expensive to ship it here and drive it around than trying to rent something.
So now, though, it's $1,800 to ship a car here. And that's only from the port. We're not even talking what it costs to bring it to the port on top of that. So it is quite expensive. And we made a mistake on the last time we shipped the van here because we already been shipping it so many times. We're like, let's just send it back. And so we came back here and we moved here. And it lasted 6 months because by that time we had 200,000 miles on the van, and the van was pretty tired.
The transmission
so that was a bad investment, for doing that. We should have just left it there and left it. So
let it die.
One of those things, if you're going to bring a car here, it better be good. And you better really like it. Those are the two criteria. And it better be reliable, because trying to fix cars here is not an easy thing to do.
Right. And we've done videos about this, you guys. If you guys actually want to delve into some of our things on this one, we have it, on other channels. But I think also we didn't really prepare ourselves for how lonely that we were going to be.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why I created the 365 Kona Newbies group. When we got here, there was basically no way that we could just jump into a support system.
So the first time we arrived in August, and by about December we kind of felt like we made a mistake. You know what I mean? And a lot of people do. I mean, this is the common. You guys probably relate to this. And we're like, you feel very alone. You can feel the island feels very far away from a lot of other things, in attitude and in everything. So we were kind of like, because we didn't have a support network, and a lot of people that move here don't have a support network. But now what Julie is saying is,
that we put on events, and we give you the Kona Newbies group on Facebook, so you can actually meet people before you actually end up on the island. People have made friends just even before they get here using this group. But the thing is that it takes an intentional effort to make friends on this island. It does, and I have a variety of people who don't do it, and they're lonely, and I'm like, you know what? It's no fun being on an island when you're lonely and slightly depressed because you are looking at all this beauty and you are alone.
So it goes back to the introverts and extroverts, okay? Mm-hmm. So extroverts are great. Julie's an extrovert. She goes out there, she meets people all the time. I, on the other hand, am more of an introvert. So going out just takes a lot of time and energy, and it's not as much fun as what I'd like to do sometimes. But here, if you do not go meet people, you will be lonely. It's kind of a guarantee.
And you know what, guys? This isn't just like lonely, like you sit around your house watching TV and see the view and having your own cocktail at your own house. We've had this happen to a variety of our friends. Broken legs, car accidents, running out of gas, bad things happen, and all of a sudden you don't have a support structure.
Wherever you go, you need a support structure.
Yeah, and growing up, wherever you're at, you always probably took it for granted that you can make a phone call and somebody you knew from your neighborhood or from your childhood or your school or whatever the heck was going to come and get you. When you move yourself out to an island, there's nobody here for you. It's scary, and I have to tell you the truth, but it's true. I had a woman that moved out here. She ended up in the hospital for 3 or 4 days with diverticulitis, and she realized very quickly that she didn't realize how horrible it is not having her friends be able to come and visit her in the hospital, and she promptly packed up her stuff and left the island. So it happens. In fact, we have a guy that moved here not that long ago, and I was mentioning in the Kona Newbies group that there is a level of you have to kind of dig in, get gritty, figure out things here. And he's like, well, how hard is it? I've been here for 6 months and everything's been perfect for me. I'm like, you are a very lucky man. And I was telling him, people run out of money. They can't find a place to live, or they come here thinking it's going to be one way. It's totally different.
Let's dive into the finances too.
Finances.
Mistake on our part. We come here. We had a set amount of money set aside for the year, and we're like, this is great. It lasts us. Did our budget at home. Everything is fine. We come here, and we realize that no, it's not the same. And the fact that it is much more expensive here, and you're like, okay, how much more expensive could the food be? Okay, it's a little bit, but it's just everything that gets you, and it just kind of adds up. And if you're not careful, it will, it really
runs you down.
It runs you down. And if you're on a set income, or you've realized that, or even you've got a job that only makes so much, careful. That was definitely a mistake that we ran into. We're towards the end of our first year. We were like, oh God, we're almost out of money.
Fumes.
Yeah. So we were very happy to go back to the mainland and kind of eat well.
Oh my gosh, Trader Joe's, $1.29 yogurt. Woo!
Okay, I got to start. So the second time we moved to the island, we moved from here to Lake Tahoe, California, and they had a store called Grocery Outlet. And Grocery Outlet is, I don't know if you guys maybe some of you have seen it. It's kind of discounted groceries. They get all the things. It's not cheap stuff. It's good stuff too. But they just
some of the mistakes.
Some of the things that didn't work out,
pumpkin.
They had pumpkin everything. You know what I mean? We had pumpkin for a long time. But it's about, I don't know, two-thirds the cost of regular groceries. And coming from here, where groceries tend to be a lot more expensive than the mainland, it was like a party. We ate well.
Pack of cookies for $2.
We ate well for the entire year like that. Spent $100. We got 2 bags of groceries. It was
beautiful.
Like the best day.
Yeah. In fact, and again, this isn't an encouragement or a discouragement about moving here, but for years, because I had 2 small children and a husband to feed, agonizing over the meat department.
We ate a lot of chicken thighs.
Yeah.
We still eat a lot of chicken thighs. We like chicken thighs. They're good. They're cheap. They're economical.
Put them in a shoyu sauce, grill them up.
Yeah.
So that was another thing too. They just not realizing how expensive Hawaii is. Now, what you guys get though is that now you go on YouTube and all you have to do is basically type in "move to Hawaii" and all of a sudden, like, the cons of living in Hawaii, the cost of living here, crazy stuff.
We've definitely made a dent making not you guys coming here either. We're not encouraging people to come here. Some people say, "Where you guys are trying to encourage people to come." Why? We are saying that we want the right people. If they're going to come, we want to prepare them properly, so they fit into the community and they know what the pitfalls are and all those kinds of things that happen.
Yeah, and so one of the things, because of the loneliness experience, because maybe because I am an extrovert, the importance of being able to find communities just cannot be overstated. So volunteering is very important in this island, because not only are you coming as a guest of the host culture, you also have kind of like an imperative experience of giving back to the island. And we created in fact, I'm just rolling it out, 365 Hawaii Island Community Fund, and its main goal is to gather volunteers together and be a resource to other nonprofits that need volunteers to make their things happen. And one of the things that we will be doing is a public festival, like a Best Kona festival, and also like a fundraising event. But also we are going to be cultivating really good people who understand how to care for this island. And one of my goals when I first got here was to make sure that when you come to a new place, you always want to give back more than you take.
Yep.
And those are the people that we encourage to move here, actually. The ones who understand that, you know what, this is a special place and it takes special care. And you know what, you won't be lonely when you're with other people who share the same value system as you do in terms of getting back to the community.
Very good, and I applaud Julie for doing this. This has been her little baby for a while now, and she's been working on this for at least 2-3 years now, and it's finally coming together. So
because I've been volunteering in this community for 20.
That's right.
Because we volunteered our faces off. Because that was another thing. I'll tell you guys a story. When I got here the first year, totally unprepared, didn't know how to make friends. Again, Facebook wasn't available. None of that. So when I left the island, I knew I wanted to come back and live here full time. So the second time I came back here in 2010, right, I was like the ninja warrior stance of I'm going to go in next time and I'm going to create my own job opportunity and I'm going to create my own friend base by volunteering. So I came in like this. And I got into the school system and I created the Big Island Chocolate Festival and I started doing that. And I also was volunteering for the March Times. And I was like, I'm going to make this happen for me because I want to fit into this island and feel good about it because I'm supposed to be here. And that's another thing too, when we talk about being called to the island, there's an energy source here that people feel connected to and it's home, and you want to make sure that you get to live here full time. But if you can't afford to live here and you have no friends, it's very difficult to make that happen. So getting to the point where you can get in and get the basics covered, so then you can grow outside of that and enjoy the spirit and the energy of this wonderful island.
Yep. So, very good.
Thank you.
So one of the other things that we were talking about is this idea of, well, there's a couple I'm thinking of. One is assimilating into the island. And a lot of people come thinking that they will become, you're going to be part of the island, but you're still always part of where you came from as well. It's kind of like, it's like we can't become, we're like local Howleys is how I would describe us, okay?
We're never going to be Hawaiian, so never say that because like you're from California, you're Californian. When you're from Hawaii, that does not make you Hawaiian. Only the Hawaiians who actually have native blood, that's Hawaiians. You can be local from being here for a very long time, but you're not going to be local unless you've been here probably for at least, I don't know, 30 years.
We haven't got there yet.
Yeah,
we
most
keep
of us
trying.
I didn't realize was the cultural aspect of living in Hawaii. That it truly is, it's a beautiful culture, the Hawaiian culture, and you need to learn about it. And I don't know about you, but me, I wish I had done more education before I actually stepped on this island to understand the history of Hawaii. Because once you get the history, you get a little bit more of the story about how you are treated here and how you can actually come with an open mind about making sure that you don't come trying to change Hawaii because you're taking what you came from, bringing it here. They always say, let Hawaii change you. And knowing that there's already a host culture here and integrating with that culture is a very important thing.
And adding to that, I think that one thing that's very important is a lot of people don't and we didn't a mistake that we know is didn't understanding Hawaiian history and how at the end of the day that the Hawaiians were forcibly taken over by the United States, right? You know what I mean? And that's one thing there says, oh no, they're the 50th.
Yeah, they just need to get over it.
Yeah.
Never ever say they just need to get over it, because you know what? This was an overthrown government and it has not been fair. And it's been proven in many times that it is true that it's been overthrown. And so when people come here and go, you know, well, that's old history. Well, it's still very much their history right now. So
yeah, and it's coming up more now and more power that that they're able to move forward with it.
Yeah. In fact, when Eric and I first got here was 2005.
Yeah.
They were actually trying to turn the state into a sovereign nation. And that was actually going through Congress. So there you go. Okay, and then also, I got to tell you guys one thing that, for all of you guys who are actually coming to Hawaii, one thing also that you need to know about is ocean safety.
Ocean safety. So,
because
all right, okay.
That is totally different than, let's say, Santa Cruz.
I'll start off this conversation because it's so fun. Everybody comes here and they say the water is so warm and is so inviting, it can't be dangerous. There's nothing wrong with it. So they go out there, and unlike Disneyland's, we don't have handrails on things.
Right, and we don't have orange caution cones like they do in California.
And they're not going to say, if you jump off this cliff, that you might not be okay. I mean, there's an example. So down at South Point, there is a cliff, and it's about 45 feet tall of sheer rocks, and people jump off there, and it's really great. And it's been all over the internet, and people do it all the time. Everybody thinks that's safe to do, but as of last week, they lost somebody. They jumped out, and the water was rough, and it sucked them out to sea, and they drowned, and that was the end of that. So it's one of those mistakes, is that believing that that everything is fine here, and it is not. It is a dangerous place, and you need to take everything. You have to sort of say, is this dangerous or is this not dangerous? Because nobody's going to tell it for you.
Yeah, you watch, if the locals are in the water,
then you might not want to be.
In fact, if you guys go to White Sands Beach, Magic Sands, which is also called La'aloa, the lifeguard will say, if you're in the water right now with equipment that you got at Costco or Walmart, you need to get out right now. Because we have some very dangerous shore breaks there. In fact, when you and I first came here, we didn't know what a surge was.
No.
Yeah, I mean, down like a South Point, guys, it pulls in and pulls out because you're just, and it can go up and down like 30 feet.
Yeah, so just a little side note, there's a flat rock, and the water kind of comes up, and you jump on the flat rock. When you're done, the water goes down. But it could be, a 10-foot difference between the two of them. And you could, it's super dangerous. And even something so mundane as Hapuna, right? And here's Hapuna with lifeguards everywhere. It's supposed to be the best beach in the world. Blah, blah, blah. It's also one of the more dangerous ones because the water comes straight down onto the beach there, and really is, if you're not really, so be aware. Don't make the mistake that life is dangerous.
Don't make this mistake.
Life is dangerous. Don't make that mistake.
It is more dangerous.
Look out for yourself.
Exactly. Because if we're looking out right now, it is dark blue, and then it gets light blue. It's 5,000 feet, and all of a sudden it's the land. So it comes in, and that's what happens. So no one talked to us about that until we were here for a couple of years. We couldn't understand why it looked like it was a roaring instant wave and just dumps on you. Also, what we didn't realize too with the pests.
Okay, all right, yes.
In fact, I just saw on Facebook the other day some guys like this. This is the largest centipede I've ever seen in my life. He took a picture of it. It was freaking 18 inches.
Yeah. So I have a funny story. So we moved into our new condo, going way back 2005, and I was going to clean out. I put new lights in the house. They had like 2 lights, and they were broken. I don't know what the guy did before me. So I fixed all the lighting. The place lit up, and all of a sudden I lit everything up at night, and we had the B-52 cockroaches flying around. The kids are screaming. The wife is screaming. I'm taking a broom and I'm whacking them out of the sky. It was crazy. I had a mistake. I didn't know that the pests would be that strong here.
Well, there was one because the screens had been torn.
The screens were not there.
And the cockroaches are attracted to light.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. And so they were coming into the house because all of a sudden it was lit up like, the 4th of July in there.
So, and this is, the more south you get, the more bugs you get. More towards Waikolo, it's a little less prevalent up there just because it's drier. But when it's wet and you've got lots of opportunities, there's going to be lots of, and understanding that cockroaches are just part of life, and that was a mistake that I didn't know that there were bugs were going to
I know. It's so funny, you guys, because now, when people live here for a length of time, that you can make fun of everybody else who's just moving here and screaming and yelling about what's happening here.
Yeah.
And the joke always is, you moved to a tropical island.
What do you expect?
What did you think?
Yeah, and we made all the mistakes you guys did.
Yeah,
it's just I guess this video is us us about laughing about some of the things that we did. And conveying a little bit of wisdom for you, too.
Yeah, and that's another reason why we started the 365 experience, like with the newbies group and the channel, was to basically share this information that nobody told us. And it does make a difference in terms of livability. If you really can't stand insects, and you're scared that, you know, you're going to get a gecko that's going to drop on your head, it's
they do, too.
It's a thing. So just like, again, I think the big mistake was just not really getting a chance to actually do all the research that some people now can do because of videos like this.
Yeah, you spend 20 minutes and you see all our pitfalls.
Yeah,
right
so you
here.
can avoid them. Yeah. But I think right now the big one that we have yet to actually experience, because we're not quite there yet, is that we are not retired without a job yet.
Yeah.
So we would like to see how that's going to go. So we've been asking some of our friends who come here retired, and they have been preparing for years to get here. So they don't have to worry about getting a job. They've gotten their investment properties, they've got their stocks. But we do see friends that are working down at Costco to get their health benefits. So again, if you guys are actually even thinking about moving here, especially when you're older as a retired person, it does take a lot of planning. And we do more videos about that. So if you want to see more of our videos, we ask a lot of our friends who have retired, and we're doing the pros and cons of that as well.
So we've covered quite a few mistakes here on our little trip here.
Yeah.
I hope you guys, this was kind of a rolling documentary of all the things that have happened.
Because when you move 2,500 miles out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, in the most remote island chain in the world, there's going to be things that you can never expect are going to happen to you. And I think that brings me to I'm doing a blog post about this. Resilience, grit, being able to roll the punches, having courage, being able to realize that sometimes people don't always belong on an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and quitting is not a bad thing, because sometimes you just can't make it work. Yeah,
and this goes back to the mistake is that everybody is, just because you want to come to the island doesn't mean you should be here, right? And sometimes, say what you will, the island has an energy, you know, whether it be Pele, whether it be pick what you want, it has an energy, and if you fit with this energy, everything is fine. If you don't fit, you're going to be out of here. And that's why the stat is 1 in 6 people actually make it here for over 5 years. Yeah. So it gives you an idea.
There you go. And like our friend who said everything has been peachy and keen and rosy for him for 6 months, he's one of the lucky guys.
Yep.
That everything just seems to be just rolling quite along for him. And you know what? We'll tell you guys, if you guys want to work with us at some point, we can ask you a few questions about how you feel about this island and what's happened to you while you've been here. And that will probably give us a good idea of trying to help you figure out how you're going to assimilate, or tell you flat out, maybe you need to be here a little bit longer and kind of like figure it out before you actually buy a house. Because sometimes people really do need to rent for a year and kind of like figure out if this really is for them.
Right, and the mistake would be if it's not for you, maybe it's time to leave. You know what I mean? Don't feel bad about that.
Yeah, we're not. I mean, seriously, it's seriously, don't come if you come, and we just had this happen, and we're going to talk to this person. If you come in the first like 5 days and you break your leg, there's a sign. But also, if you really feel like, you know, and we've had this happen too, that the locals don't like you, usually it's not them, it's you. So if you're not nice and you don't have the aloha spirit, and you have a way of saying, you know what, it's got to be this way, there's probably going to be an energy disconnect here.
So there you go.
Okay.
One more tip for you. We just keep rolling on it. All right. With that, we're gonna cut this off here.
Yeah, but if you guys were to have a Zoom call with us about life on this island, you basically just got it in this video.
That's right. Yeah, definitely. So our other channel is 365 Hawaii Real Estate Minute, and we cover all real estate items. So after you've talked about all the things that we talked about today, you're going to get into the details of it. That's probably the place you want to go.
Right, and we've got videos about like healthcare and all the other things that happen on this island.
Right.
But this one was basically kind of like, you know, just let you guys know that it's a deal to move to an island, and yes, nobody gets to have a perfect experience. Mistakes will be made, but exactly, it's how you kind of handle it. Because if we had left and never came back again, our lives would not be as good.
And look at us here. We're this is it. We're going to die here. That's how it is. Hopefully I won't die soon, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the idea.
And giving back to this island to the point where we have a very fulfilling life, and we are more than blessed to be able to tell people some of our experiences. And if you're meant to be here, I hope that we're friends with you. So come and check us out, and we'll get you involved. And don't forget, aloha and being pono, that's everything.
And with that,
we'll say aloha.